Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is a very dark and gloomy and even rainy morning over here and Friday on Helsinki, Finland. Wait, that's all backwards. Well, you know what the fuck that I was trying to say. But more importantly, got a full night of sleep, or at least wasn't woken up at 3 a.m. last night by the sun coming in my blinds. Anyways, plenty to talk about today as we finally have things moving once again, hitting all sorts of targets across all major markets. Traditionals once again leading the charge, and Bitcoin actually having a little bit of action as well, hitting that 9,700 target that we had from a few days ago after breaking the 9450-ish region. So I want to follow up on all these things and really prepare for Friday's closure today. So realistically, today is going to be a lot of posturing going into next week, as all of the trades that we were looking for, they're pretty much, I shouldn't say that they're done for the week. I mean, we can certainly have some more movement today, but the bias is not really set right now, so to speak. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself because I need to actually explain what the fuck I'm talking about, which is probably best done with charts. And let's first look at the Krown Trading application over here, which can be found at app.krowntrading.net. And it's free, and take advantage of it, man. Anyways, or girls, or he, z, zers, whatever the fuck it is nowadays. I don't know. Don't get mad at me. It's just I'm unawares. I'm not really into. I don't really understand current culture. So fair enough. I have good intentions. That's all that I can say. Anyways, looking at the Bitcoin dominance, we do still see it still hanging around 61.5%, which did take a nice little leg down about 1% from the range that we were looking at for the past 2 weeks or so. So there is some interesting things going on right there. And there certainly are some altcoins that are on phenomenal runs. It's this whole DeFi thing doing crazy things in this market, 2017 all over again. Anyways, open interest still around that $2.25 billion marker, which I don't really have too much to make out of that until we actually get a break at the high term time frame range. 9,900 to the upside, or 9,000 about to the downside. Fear and greed index, very interesting interaction there yesterday, as we actually ticked down a couple points, even though Bitcoin did rally up from about 9,400 to 9,700, where we are, or sorry, not where we are right now, but where we got last night, or at least my last night, being in the Eastern European time zone. Anyways, other than that, I think it's time to get into the actual charts, which we'll start off with some good old Nasdaq analysis, of which we did say that yesterday, very likely to come back down to the 21 exponential average, playing out that bearish divergence on the daily. Does it happen, all on the same day? Nope, happens over 1, 2, 3, and on day number 4. The day number 4, you finally get your move down there. So realistically right now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to jump the gun and just absolutely short this to oblivion, which I believe right now is actually the time to be a little more defensive. While I do think that this is potentially putting in a top here, the right way that I found to be coming at a scenario like this is to treat it as if the former trend is still in play here. And for right now, you can see that as long as this thing's closing above the 21 exponential average on the daily, we do have higher highs and higher lows, of course. And realistically, if it does put in another low right here around the 21 exponential average, which is going to be a very obvious target for a lot of bots and algos the way that they're programmed, we will put in hidden bullish divergence here as well and get another pop back up, probably back up to that 10,850-ish region. So I just want to toot my own horn here for a second. No, just kidding. Terrible thing to say. But yesterday we did say that it was going to pop back up to about 10,950. We got that, and then immediately a sell-off as the market opened, which is fucking classic. But that's not to say that I'm looking for this to melt down further today. I really want to see the weekly closure. Does the weekly close anywhere here or higher, then I do think that it's still appropriate to be defensive within this region and probably look for an up open coming into next week and bring it back into the median of the range, somewhere around like 10,750 to 10,800-ish region, and then analyze it after that. Because right now there's too many question marks, too many variables as we come into a very important weekly closure after a week of earnings for all the major names, which is taking on the major direction for the overall markets, and Nasdaq being the leading indicator for these markets right now. I do want to be very careful in this one. But here's what I can say today. If we did close below, or even just tick below last week's low at 10,370, it's 10,350, then yes, I would be looking for at the very least a medium-term reversal all the way back down to wherever the 10 simple is coming into next week, probably around 10,100-ish region if I had to guess. Small bounce there with very likely continuation all the way down to the 21 exponential average sometime over the next couple weeks, which would put us in the mid 9,000s. That would also be confirming bearish divergence on not just the daily, but also the weekly as well. And that's where I'm getting kind of those targets from as momentum oscillators turn back down as well. Here's the thing though, NAS can come back down to the 10 simple or the 21 exponential average and still be in an overall uptrend from a higher term time frame perspective, especially considering that the monthly is going to be closing relatively soon. I just want to get my calendar out right here. Yeah, we have literally 1 week left in the trading week for this next monthly. And depending upon how the monthly closes, that's going to really drive my bias for the next, few months of price action, whether I want to be looking at this as a major top or not. For right now, it's definitely a potential, but it's certainly not confirmed. And with a whole, week to go, I think that it's a little bit too premature to really be judging anything more than that. But for right now, what I can be saying is that, I don't think that we're going to break down today. I do think that we probably put in another bounce right here, and then next week, if it wants to actually have follow through to the downside, that's when I'd be looking for something like that. The only way that I'd really be looking for or confirming this as a reversal on a daily and weekly is taking out last week's low at 10,350, especially if we close the daily and weekly because they're both closing at the same time today below that reach. And then yes, I would be looking at it like that, setting up for a pretty nice pullback. But for right now, I actually do think that it's more appropriate to be defensive within this region, because this can still pop back up, reaccumulate in this region, and then perhaps one more melting move. But I want to go back over to Tesla yesterday. Yesterday, Tesla, we said that there was going to be an up open. I mean, it's not like it sounds like I'm being fucking clairvoyant or some shit. That it was obviously trading there in aftermarket hours, no shit. But I did say that the up open would very likely be a major sell, and well, that was the highest price that you saw all day. But Krown, what about Elon Musk and his earnings? If they print good earnings, then definitely Tesla's going to 2,000. No, that's way too bearish. 5,000. No, Krown, that's definitely not bearish enough. That's fucking 10 billion kajillion. I'm going to fucking Mars on Elon Musk's goddamn spaceship. And I'm a big Musk fan, man. I actually think that he's a massive genius. I mean, I actually think it's like, what have I done? I've done nothing compared to him. But as far as trading goes, you see the same sort of exuberant irrationality that you saw in 2017 for Bitcoin as you're seeing in Tesla right now. I mean, at what point is greed, too fucking greedy? Just look at this run that it's had over the last year or so, since September, realistically putting in lows, in the upper 100s. I mean, it's literally more. It's been like a fucking shitcoin that's just mooned off to oblivion, 700% to the upside. I think it'd be very relevant to think that this one is very likely putting at a top here. Bearish divergence confirmed on the daily 1, 2, 3 drives, probably coming back down to a little bit below 1400-ish region. But I really want to see, same thing on this one as I've been saying on Nasdaq. This one does very, very likely look topped out to me. The only way that I'd be looking for another melt up to the upside, and I can very easily be wrong in this, obviously. I mean, this is all a game of statistics and probabilities. So, take my autistic outrages as more so just silly entertainment for yourself rather than like legitimate trading acumen, because this is never financial advice. This is the furthest thing from financial advice. Anyways, taking out last week's low at 1431, which would obviously be above that target from the daily divergence, would very likely confirm this at the very least as a medium-term time frame reversal and initiate a move not just down to that slightly below $1,400 target, but coming into next week, I'd probably be looking for a move back down here towards the 1,200 gap with a short-term and maybe even medium-term bounce based upon that. But for right now, this one does really look like, depending upon how this weekly closes, really does look like we could be seeing one of the major tops here. Major bearish divergence is potentially present on the weekly, not confirmed just yet. Will be confirmed by taking out last week's low. Daily, obviously the same thing as well, but this divergence is confirmed from these last 3 spikes. I guess really more or less 2. As momentum also to turn down and also potentially lose the bullish control zone, but that won't be confirmed until later today. So it's the same thing here as I say on Nasdaq. I think that this one looks a lot more obviously toppy, but I would be defensive within this region until that criteria was met. We had the easy trade from yesterday, just selling the open all the way back down to the low side of the range. The question is now, do we get continuation coming into today? It would look likely, yes, but I really want to see how the weekly close before I talk about any more long-term price action on this one. Looking at Microsoft, same thing, same fucking thing. Although, yeah, Microsoft again, one of the market leaders alongside Apple and more recently Tesla. All text type of stuff. And what do we see on Microsoft? It's the same fucking chart, right? Could it put in another higher low right here? Yes, it could, but I'd really much rather wait for the weekly closure. We got so close to taking out last week's low at 201.39. If that does happen, I'd look for a quick move down to 196 region and then likely set up continuation to the 21 coming into next week or the week after, whatever it ends up being. By the same token, if today's daily total closes anywhere around 205, I'd look for this one to at least try another move back up towards 213, 214-ish region. And then maybe this one gets another move to the upside. This one, unlike Tesla, does look like it could still potentially pull through. But I want to see the weekly close today and daily close today before I talk about more long-term price action. Same thing as the ones before. But if I did have to call it, I actually do think that it bounces here on Friday, and then coming into next week, we'll get resolution on this formation. Looking at Apple, same thing. Does it bounce here to open up the day? Probably yes. Is the bounce a sell? Probably yes. I mean, this one does look a lot more toppy, like Tesla as well. Nice jewel sell signal, pretty much not on the overall top. The jewel does this quite often, where it won't get the overall top, but then it'll get like the next momentous swing, which to each their own. Some people will like that, some people won't like that. But looking at daily divergence, it is certainly very much present and already initiated. We hit the downside target of it at 375 region that we had from yesterday. Does Apple bounce here? Probably does try a bounce here. But I really want to see how the weekly closes, because that's going to set in the bias coming into next week. But look at this. I mean, it's already taken out last week's low. For the more aggressive traders, they will take shorts off that. We do technically have bearish divergence, not just present, but you could even say that this is confirmed on this one. Technically speaking, if you want full confirmation, you want to see a closure below last week's low. But it's looking, well, if we do bounce on the open, it's a long day of trading to go, but it's certainly a possibility. And this one does look like it wants to head back down somewhere around 350. And I would be looking for a bouncer. I mean, make no mistake about it, it's still in an uptrend, even if it does get back down around there. So perspective on the whole picture as well, but does have some downside in the short and medium term, in the short and medium terms. In between there. Also looking at E-mini futures for SPY, I think that this chart's very, very interesting right now as well. We do have a potential swing failure pattern in progress, and I actually think that the resolution of E-mini futures for SPY is more important than what we see on Nasdaq right now, because what you typically see after one sector is kind of topped out is you see rotations into the next one. And SPY is kind of looking at the general market, I suppose, is maybe a bad way of relating that, but it works for now. and so I want to see how much does SPY get on this next one. I wouldn't necessarily consider this a swing failure pattern just yet. It's too close to really call it. You could try this a couple different ways, and I'd go with the more lenient way in favor of the former trend. I think that that's just the right thing to do, generally speaking. However, does it look like it wants to take a leg down to the 21 exponential moving average today at 318? Yeah, it does. Or yeah, 318 it looks like. But where does it close is the real question. Does it close above or below essentially this area right here? I mean, if it closes below, let's call it 320, or what exactly is that? Yeah, especially below 320, I would be looking at this as a major top being put in. We had what I would have been saying, or what I have been saying, is once we got this closure here on the 19th of July, I'd really be targeting a move towards 334. I'd still keep that open, just because. I'd still kind of stick with that, just because we haven't really gotten the move here just yet that really should change my bias. Bias will change on this one when the trend is reversed, and that's actually not happening just yet. And won't happen for a little bit of time until we realistically get back down below 3,000. So it does have quite a bit of leeway here, but if we do close the week basically here or lower below 320 especially, I would be looking for a medium-term reversal back down to 3100-ish region, with particular interest on that 3,000 base. for the long term. And if this one tops out right here before really even making a legitimate leg towards that next proverbial target somewhere right around 333 region, then that would suggest that the overall market's, more or less on the weaker side, especially in comparison to Nasdaq, which it is. I mean, Nasdaq has really only been held up by like, a few different companies to begin with. So it does seem like it's certainly a possibility, and that would make this cycle go a lot faster. But in the meantime, I'd still keep it very much available depending upon how we close today. If today closes above, let's call it 325 region, I would be looking for this still to have a bias to the upside towards that 335 region, or sorry, 333 and a half region. Anyways, let's go follow up on Bitcoin. So we did hit our $9,700 target yesterday, which was born upon the back of breaking that 9,400-ish resistance right here. Switching up the bias from the short and medium term time frames in line with the daily trend to the upside. And so what do we do now? Well, we had a quick little sell-off based upon that, but what I'd be looking at this right now is, it's just a simple uptrend. Using the 9450-ish pivot as a baseline now, I think is very much appropriate. And as long as we're above there, I would be looking for this to trade a little bit sideways into the weekend, and then give a try up to the top side blue box, somewhere right around 9,900 to 10,000, as we do have hidden bullish divergence present on the 3-day, which was confirmed on the 23rd. On July 23rd with this closure right here. And just to kind of show this one off, 1, 2, 3 drives typically does a trick. And we are also back above the exponential as well. And that would typically net you a nice little drive up to the top side of the range. So we hit the easy portion of that target at 9,700. But I do think that coming into next week, depending upon how this how this next 3-day total closes right here, assuming that it maintains, especially above 9,500, that target to 9,900 is still very much relevant. However, if it does put in a top here, then we got a big problem because then we have another lower high on a 3-day, and that's gonna look really fucking nasty. But for right now, I'd say that it looks more good than bad. Obviously, the trend on all time frames, daily, 2-day, and 3-day is now once again to the upside. 2-day and 3-day obviously never really changed. The daily did by taking out 9,400, and that's why that was significant a few days ago. So I'd be using that as a bias once again for judging short and medium term time frame trades, both to the upside and the downside. That would also mean we do technically have hidden bearish divergence present. Potentially present on the daily, if and only if we confirm a lower high right here in comparison to this guy right here. And this is actually not really relevant on the daily. It's more so relevant on actually the 3-day, funnily enough. But if that happens, then I'd be looking for another drive back down to the low side of the range at about 9,000 to 9,100-ish region. So again, it's the same sort of implications, both to the upside and the downside. And let me just put back on. Oh, it's kitchen time! Kitchen time! Get your fucking knives and forks out. I'm hungry. Yeah, laugh at. Yeah. You think that's funny? I think spoons are funny too. Okay, so back on to shit that matters. 9,400 still that pivot right there, and I'd even extend that all the way up more aggressively to 9,500. I think that would start to signal some warning flags, or throw some warning flag. What the fuck's that saying? I don't know. I don't see any divergences here to be aware of on the 4. I'm sure that some people are going to say hidden bearish divergence here and here. No, that's not. That would not be appropriate because we are now in an uptrend, so you can't quite literally have you can't have hidden bearish divergence in an uptrend. You can't have it contrary to the overall trend. You do have, that's why I've been using a higher term time frame. It technically is potentially present on the 3-day, but it would have to confirm a lower high here, and then it would actually imply follow through to the downside. So fair enough. But hey, if we do break back down below this level right here, like I said, I'd be looking for another move back down to the low side of the range, 9,000 to 9,100-ish region. But I don't think that that's what's happening right here, even though Bitcoin's rather frustrating in this range. 4-hour has once again gotten golden cross. We are riding it in the way that we're riding it like a pony. No, we're riding it in the way that you'd want to see on a cross like this. Now, technically speaking, this one over here was more or less a good one as well, but didn't really get any real follow through. I mean, like a 4% move move here, which that's very tradable, but that's not really what you expect from a move like that, historically speaking. So for right now, when you do have multiple snakes around like this, it does suggest that we're consolidating. Obviously, that's what's going on right here. But it needs to be taken into context of that particular time frame, which I believe with the advent of this action right here, we have gotten clarity that that this one actually does want to play out as we get the cross breaking a major resistance, also confirming an uptrend on a daily as well. So all those things coming into position with each other, I do think lines out that bias to the upside from this one, saying that this one's going to be more efficacious, whereas this one over here never really broke down below our lower end blue box, so it didn't really have the follow through that you'd expect from a momentous cross like that, below a critical area, confirming a new change of behavior. From a higher term time frame perspective. Okay, all right. So what does that look like for right now? Well, for right now, it does look like Bitcoin's going to put in some sideways action, essentially between 9450 to 9500, and in our high of yesterday, 9700. And I kind of look for that to just, if Bitcoin's going to be healthy, probably work its way into the weekend, and then look for resolution next week, very likely to the upside targets of 9,900 to 10,000. But that's all assuming that criteria gets maintained or gets met. That 9450 essentially gets held up. For more aggressive traders, they'll use 95. For more conservative, they'll use 94. And our momentum oscillators right now are looking for some nice pullbackies, as 4-hour Stokes crossing down, and they will remain to the downside as long as we are below 9600ish region. So that area is of particular interest right here. 3-hour showing the same area, 9600, for momentum going back up to the upside. 3-hour does have bearish divergence though present, so that is very much relevant. But realistically, I think that we've kind of already hit the target from that $200 down from 97 to 95, which is essentially where I'd be looking towards. 2-hour showing 9630, so even a little bit higher than that, and hourly showing the same as well. So that very likely lines up with some sideways here, in that range between about 95 and 9650, we'll call it. I'd be looking for tests on both sides coming into this weekend, and then coming into next week, potential resolution. I don't think that we're gonna have resolution today. I don't think that we're gonna have resolution over the weekend. I think that we get resolution likely next week. Hourly did get a nice little jewel sell signal where it told you to sell. Not on the ultimate high right here, not even on this high right here, but this area right here is where it really started to give a nice little signal, and that got from 96 all the way down to 95. It's an hourly signal, not all that impressive, but hit a few signals, and then soon enough you got a home run. That's what my mentor always used to say. He said, just focus on singles. You'll start producing runs at some point. And for whatever reason, I just really like baseball analogies, as I was a baseball player myself when I was younger, and I'm sure that a lot of other people in the Western Hemisphere tuning into content like this are as well. So hopefully that can make some sense. Anyways, looking at the 2-hour, looking at the buy hourly, we actually have that same bearish divergence present as well. I think that we've already hit the target from that, and yeah, I'd be looking for some sideways here essentially. Let's go over to the medium-term timeframes, like the 10-hour and 12-hour, and 10-hour is going to start to turn momentum back onto the downside below 9,500. So I do feel quite secure in that area, being a nice little bias buster, if you want to call it that. If Bitcoin does start to close 10-hour, 12-hour, even 4-hour dildos below 9,500, that's going to be a big warning flag that this could all just have been a dream, and boo laws are once again going to be getting barrowed bonered to the downside as below 9,500. That is when this really does start to look like a confirmed lower high, and on the higher term timeframes, of course. But again, it's a long time between now and the weekly closure on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Looking at the 12-hour, same sort of thing. But the 12-hour actually looks like it's going to give another try to the upside here. Got a nice little backfill. While 12-hour stocks are going to cross to the downside, I would be a little bit I'd be a little bit skeptical about this. I actually do kind of like the way that looks, but again, same sort of implications here. 9,500, that pivot point that I'd be looking at, and momentum will remain to the downside as long as we are below 9,550, which is actually that backfill area, which is very, very interesting. A little bit lower than that, but overall, if this one does close back above 9,550, are we still trending in progress? Yeah, I would say so. And is it going to give another try up to 9,700? Probably, yeah. That would just be filling out the range. It's not really till we break now 9,700, especially on like a 4-hour closure, where I'd really start to target that move into the 9,900 to $10,000 marker, of which that's when things get very interesting from a long-term perspective, because on a weekly, this is going to start to shape up. It's a little bit ugly and a little bit premature, but it would start to shape up into, just a general uptrend here, putting in a low right here, higher low right here, high and higher high. And well, what do you think is going to happen if we do approach that 9900-ish level again? Well, the bias here would obviously be an ascending triangle, and that would very likely, statistically speaking, have more of a probability of hitting the upside targets with a resolution point of about 9900 to the upside. If we do close above there, that would initiate a measure move, as I've already done right here, all the way up to a little bit north of 11,000, around 11,400 to 11,500-ish region, which is very interesting because that's actually the long-term macro area where Bitcoin's been getting rejected from ever since January 2018. This is institutional order flow dynamics at play in the way that I look at it, and very, 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 very obvious. I do believe that all the big accounts, all the big traders, all the big players in this game have been getting their fills within this region for the last 3 years, essentially. So getting back above there would mark a massive change of behavior. And there's a few other tools that we can look into now that will be a little bit more ephemeral and floating and kind of less tangible, but I think does kind of round out a nice bias, at least. A little bit of mental masturbation here. Obviously, I've done the way that I trade is very fucking simple, to be quite honest with you. But now we'll do stuff that I think is fun to talk about, fun to fantasize about, and can help certainly. But at the end of the day, to each their own. Anyway, so go check out I want to explain this entropy again because it's really fucking interesting stuff to me. Entropy coming down while historical volatility percentile is quite contracted is a good signal that we are going to see a major massive trend emerge from where we are right now. That means that would very likely imply that the resolution of this range right here, whether it be below 9,000 or above 9,900, is very likely going to lead into the next major direction in this market. And when I say major direction in this market, I'll give you an idea of what the last sort of signals from this have kind of produced in conjunction with each other. And we have this one right here, obviously. We have volatility expanding extremely aggressively, all the way from this high right here at 6,400, while entropy was falling the whole way through. And that means that the trending action is in progress, and that's when you get moves like that, 54% down. And of course it works to the upside as well, which we can probably find a good example. Let's see, maybe at the start of the there's actually several good examples right here. I think this one's a good one just because it kind of marked the switch up from bear market to bull market in October 2015. But entropy falling, historic volatility percentile starts to expand from this region, and the next trend that emerges from that is dominant for half a year to a year, and then we get several similar signals to that over time. So all of these things, work together, and I do believe that it rounds out quite a nice bias here. But overall, still need to see those ranges broken before I really start to gear into that more long term. But looking at this right here, we do have the same sort of signature present right now. It's just we need to see the breakage of this particular formation before really, at least for myself, trading towards it. But looking at this right here, entropy is essentially downtrending, whereas historical volatility percentile is incredibly contracted. In fact, one of the most contracted times. Actually, no, not one of the most contracted times, but it's certainly relatable to some of the most contracted times if we're using these sorts of settings, which for a mean reverting indicator can only be set to expand from a region like that, or at least that's what the most likely thing is due to just the way that it's programmed. So at the end of the day, if those two things start working together while we break one of the higher term time frame ranges, like I've been saying, 9,000 to the downside or 9,900 to the upside, very likely to see that trend emerge for a very long time. And just like when we were grinding out the downside resolution of this range at about 9,000, which we never really had, or never really confirmed, and I was talking about targets all the way down to the upper and mid 7,000s. I'd be saying the same thing, here. If Bitcoin starts grinding up 9,900 to 10,000 once again, you're going to hear me talk about all the $11,000 and beyond targets. But realistically, is a trigger met for that? Well, for myself, no, not until that condition is met. Anyways, let's go check out what. Oh my God, it's already been 30 minutes in this bitch. Okay, all right. Let's go look at some forex time. Let's go look at euro dollar, setting up for a very, 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 very nice weekly closure. Above the blue box will very likely initiate the next few, or the next target all the way up to about 117.5, 118ish region over the next few weeks, I'd imagine. But for right now, looking very, very good. I think that the reversal is very obviously real, and now we're kind of posturing for a good monthly setup here, which. Would I be looking for the monthly to have a pullback coming into August? Probably, yeah. But I'd be looking, but the bias would be set for that to be very likely an opportunity all the way back up to that 117.5 area, maybe even as much as 119.5. As I do think that this one has more on it. However, very long term though, I'm actually not bullish on this chart. I'm actually very long term. We're talking like 5 years plus out. I'd be a lot more bullish on dollar index. But for right now, it seems like all dollar pairings are failing, or sorry, all dollar pairings are mooning. And I'd be looking for that to continue for a little bit of time here. Looking at Dixie itself, I'd be hard pressed to not really think that this one's coming down to 92.5 sometime over the next few months, maybe even a little bit lower than that at 91.5, and then we'll kind of come back to that. But that's very long term. So is it that relevant to what we're looking at today? No, not really, but does set in kind of like a long term bias, I suppose. We can also look at my other favorite altcoin, pound yen, looking a little bit down to me as well. Probably coming back down to the 134.5 base. Swiss franc US dollar looking good, setting up for a nice weekly closure. So yeah, I'd be looking for next week to probably make a spike back up to 109 region. Has been under accumulation for a little bit of time here. So we are going to see that play out for a little bit of time. Any sort of a weekly closure today above 107.5 or higher is very likely going to set up that next short-term move up to that region, and then give it a potential to actually even have massive continuation up to 116, depending upon how we close this next weekly or react around that 109 region. Anyways, moving on, pound dollar shitcoin. I think that it has a little bit more upside here, but overall the long-term trend is absolutely abysmal. It is a total it's a total shitcoin is what it looks like. But short-term, medium-term, just like most dollar pairings, I do think that it is going up. Probably back up to 129 region. Test this area right here. Maybe put another lower high there, as we've been doing for the last few years, going all the way back to August 07, and maybe even further than that if we had more price action history. But generally speaking, I would be looking for this short-term, medium-term up, long-term probably continue the trend as you typically see. Yen dollar looking good here. This does look like it's posturing for an actual break to the upside, and that would be favoring the yen over the dollar. And these two are usually thought of as like the world reserve currencies. If we do resolve it to the upside, I would be looking for a retest of this high and probably beyond at 0.01. Long term, this chart's a little bit more difficult to read, but it is more or less a long term on a monthly uptrend, I suppose. Very, very strange in its posturing here over the long period of time. But yeah, it does seem to favor the upside right now. Let's see what else we have. Aussie dollar, US dollar, looks like absolute shit. I think this one might have actually even topped out. Maybe another run up to like 75 cents, or sorry, 73.5 cents or something like that. Long term, this one's just absolute garbage, it looks like. Triple Qs, we forgot to cover this one. Monthly could be setting up for some nasty shit. I'd be looking for a bounce off open. Probably brings back up to 262.25, and then we'll see how we react there into end of day. Any sort of a closure above 259.5 very likely does set it up for next week to continue this consolidation range. This one certainly looks like it could be in the process of reaccumulating here. This is why I'm very hesitant to call major breakdowns in the markets just yet. I think that they're present. I think that they're forming. The question to myself is, are we seeing it right now, or are we going to see another leg up for the laggards in this market as things get rotated to the upside? I think that that's probably what's more likely to happen. And then the ones that kind of have topped out now, they'll just trade sideways and slightly down until the rest of the market catches up. Whoa, and it is really raining hard right now. This is kind of crazy. Kind of scary too. I ain't no bitch. Okay, let's go back to Bitcoin for a second. how are daily stokes looking? They're actually looking pretty fine right here. Pretty fine. Let's see what the reverse stoke indicator cross is saying. Yeah, it shows that momentum remains the upside above, as long as we're above 9,300. So it's really not all that helpful from this region. I think that bias will be busted below 9,450 anyways. So I don't think that that's the one to be going off of right here. However, it would suggest, by the same token, that if we do close any dailies below 9,300, probably big problems all the way down to all the way down to 8,700 if that were to happen, and that would very likely mark this as all just a Bulaw's wet dream before the next big dumpy dump in your face, or in my face as well. Okay, what else do we have? But you know, for right now, I should be very clear in stating this. I'm actually looking for Bitcoin to go higher. The way that it's acting right here, I think that rotations are going to flow into Bitcoin from here, and it'll get its chance. And also, we should follow up on Mr. Butero as well. I believe that we hit the 285 target from yesterday, or wherever the fuck it was. Where is my Mr. Butero? Where are you, little shitcoin? You? Nope, that's $dollar shitcoin. Here we go. Here's the Butero shitcoin. 3-day will be confirming a golden cross. Hey. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, not until tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But did we hit that? Did we hit the target? Yeah, we did. Well, pretty much 283. Close enough. This one's going to be setting up for a pretty nice weekly closure as well. Any sort of a weekly closure above 263, and I'd really be looking for this one to buck the trend. It looks like it's likely. It looks like it wants to. It looks like it wants to make a leg up towards like 310 region and test this high right here. Weekly did get, or is. Weekly sloppy as fuck, but overall it does look like it's going to have a chance here, and I do think that it does continue up at least for another try. Now weekly stokes are getting way up there. I think that that's fine, actually. That's what you'd expect during a strong trending move. Weekly jewel is in more so of a continuation posturing, although that's a very experimental read on that, and weekly RSI is more or less healthy here. I don't have any major issues with it. In fact, I'd say that it's healthy. It's healthy-ish looking. What are their market leaders? I mean, I think Bitcoin is pretty much it after that. All the other ones pretty much fallen off. We can look at like some Cardano's and Linkies, of which Cardano, I want to see the weekly close here anywhere below 1250, and I'll be looking for a big pullback down to the 1050-ish region coming into next week. But that still remains to be seen. Link does Link still have a chance here? Yeah, I think that if anything has a chance, it's Link, as that's just been the most consistent over a long period of time. Did hit our target from yesterday up to 85,500-ish region. I'd probably be looking for it to actually continue on a little bit more into the weekend, back up to like 90,000-ish satoshis. We do have hidden bullish divergence present here. And I do think that that's going to give it another try a little bit higher. Let's see what a very low time frame looks like. Very low time frame says back down to 75,500 base, but I don't think that it breaks from there. I think that it probably reaccumulates and then tries getting higher. So putting two and two together, yeah, I do think some short and medium term down, back down to like 76,000 satoshis, then probably does bounce from there. Let's go back. Oh, we got to look at CMEs. They're closing the weekly today. Do we have bearish divergence on the 4 hour here? No, it's not present. What about 12 hour? Nope, not present. What about daily? Well, obviously not. Daily looks like continuation to me. Daily confirmed actually a higher high or potential reversal in the making above 7th of July high right here, as momentum oscillators are looking more or less fine. And yeah, I don't have any major issues with that. Only if it puts in a top right here, which it's pretty much the same criteria as we were speaking about on spot. If we can go down to a 4 hour perhaps and see what's going on right here. Does look like short term, going to go some sideways and down. Probably does make a test down to like 9450 or 9500-ish region. But I'd be looking for bounces there. Technically no bearish divergence on a 4 hour. 3 hour probably does. Actually, no bearish divergence on a 3 hour. What about a 2 hour? All right, let me just put in the 69 minute then, and it's got to be here. Yes, it's here, but I think the target's already been met from that, and it has. And looking at this, we do have hidden bullish divergence in the making, which probably does pop it back up short term, back up to 9650. So if I had to if I really had to call this right now, I'd say like very, 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 very short term, I'd be looking for a pop back up a little bit above 9600, and then some sideways into the weekend, very likely. Let's go over to the probabilities chart. But here's the thing. What ranges do I want to be looking at? Because we do have new ranges. And, well, it's not necessarily new ranges, just more proximal ranges now, I suppose. Let's go to this chart. All right. I'd be using... Yeah, okay, here's what I'd be using. I'd be a little more aggressive with this just because the higher term timeframes do look good here. 9650 to 9700, any sort of a 4-hour total closure above there, I would very likely look at that as confirmation, bullish continuation on the short term timeframes up to the 9900 to $10,000 target right here. So I will use that on lower term timeframes. By the same token, you know, is it more appropriate to be aggressive or conservative to the downside? Conservative will say 94, aggressive will say 95. I'll cut it right there in the middle of 94.50 and use the same area. If we do break 94.50 to the downside, I'd be looking for a move down here. If we break, you know, this area right here to the upside, same sort of implication with the topside blue box at 99 to 10,000. So let's go check it out right now and see what the probabilities say. What do you say, Mr. Math? Let's use 94.50 right here, and yeah, we'll keep 97 to the upside. Alrighty, very, very interesting. Look at this. On a daily, the upside probability is actually a lot more a lot more likely. Now, what's interesting about this is we are actually equally distant. No. Actually, no. We are not equidistant. We are actually closer, technically speaking, to the downside resolution of this. It's $100 away to the downside resolution versus 150 to the upside resolution. And the upside probability is actually, you know, quite a bit more. It's about 41 and some odd percent versus just under 35% for the downside target probability. This is all on a daily total closure. Let's go look at a 12-hour as well. 12-hour rings, by the way, still maintaining their upward slope, so I do like that. And actually even more aggressive here. This is very strange. You know, usually you'll see more of a disparity on higher term timeframes versus lower term timeframes, but not in this case. The 12-hour shows just over 39% to the upside probability versus 29% to the downside probability. Both of these timeframes having upward slope, so I do look at that as more or less favoring the upside here. And if I had to call it now, you know, I do think that this one does resolve to the upside, but you know, I was saying the same thing to the downside back on over here. That's why I trade technical analysis, not my fucking dumb opinion. Okay, let me just check in. Oh man, it's already 40 minutes. You know what? I think this is probably a good place to shut this one off. Yeah, I think that pretty much does it. Mostly the message that I have today is, you know, for traditional markets, I want to be looking at the weekly closure coming up. Although, you know, if I had to call it today, I do think that today opens up on a bounce, and then we probably settle somewhere in, and then set up next week for an actual move rather than today outside of any sort of ranges. And depending upon how we close this weekly today, I do think that it could very easily align for a lot of the next stocks to be rotated, not the techs, but you know, but whatever's next. To the upside, and we'll get another leg up on this current run and juice it out for a little bit of time, while techs and all the ones that are leading this past run probably trade sideways and slightly down. Other than that, I'd like to take a second to wish you well once again. Take care, and until next time.